Okay. Last snippet, we talked about ethnic identity. Now we're going to talk about national identity, and this can be fairly confusing. Um, I'll try to do this in just a few minutes, but nationality, the first thing I want you to get is this is a political concept. Okay, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But according to the book, a nationality is, or a nation, let's start with nation. A nation is a group of people that seeks to self govern through an independent state. That's the political part. The governance, they want a state, chapter 2, they want their own state, they want independence, and they want to govern themselves, right? So that's essentially almost the definition of politics. So when you hear about nationality and nationalism and nations and that sort of thing, the first thing I want you to think is political. Okay? This is about governance. Who gets to make the decisions? Now, so we got that. That may not be exactly the way you think of nation. Nationalism is pride in one's nation. Okay, we get that, but do we? What we're really talking about here, it sounds like we're talking about pride in one's state. If this nationalism has gotten to the level where if they've actually achieved creating their own state, then that nationalism can become something else. What do we call it? What do we call pride in one's state? Patriotism. We tend to think of patriotism as pride in one's country. Yes. Pride in one's nation. Okay, yeah. Really, technically, it's pride in one's state. You can have pride in a nation, but not yet have a state, right? So if you're proud to be a Kurd, or if you're proud to be a Palestinian, then that's nationalism. Even though they don't have states, even those aren't actually technically, countries, right? So that's what national identity is. Now, what's it created around? Well, it can be created around different things. Sometimes it's created around ethnicity. And this is where we get that term nation state. Everybody's heard nation state, and we use it, but it's a little bit more specific. Sometimes people use it incorrectly. Okay? Nation state is a state that's formed around a nation, a nationalism, a national identity, which means that state is largely homogenous. Okay? That state is largely is constituted of people from the same ethnicity. Okay? That's a nation state. People from the same group of people. There's something binding them together. It might be it's usually an ethnicity. So it sort of makes sense to talk about France traditionally as a nation state, or again Japan as a nation state. But that's quite specific. And as I mentioned, patriotism is pride in one's state. Patriotism is founded on symbols in the United States, of course, the eagle, the flag. So national flags, what we call national flags, is state flags. That's an element of patriotism that's observed worldwide, globally. Every state has a flag. That's a form of patriotism, and again, it's about this state, technically. Although it would be weird to tell students not to say that that's pride in one's country or pride in one's nation or what have you, but technically it's a state. So that's sort of national identity, trying to kind of distinguish between some terms that oftentimes get used together and they have a lot in common, but I want us to get the sort of the exact definitions of those. Nationalism can be different things to different people, and it can be quite controversial. Let's look at the U.S. example. This is a nation. The United States of America is a state, but it's also a nation, so that means it's founded on something. Well, what is it? There's an argument that's playing out in our current politics that we haven't really seen for a while, because traditionally the nation, United States nation, is built on a set of ideas. Those ideas being Constitution, democracy, etc. But now, what we've seen over the last 4 years is a vocal argument amongst Trump and some of his advisors, Steve Bannon at one point, Stephen Miller, and a number of other people in and outside of the administration, saying the United States is essentially based on an ethnicity. Whites, or white Christianity, or what have you. So what exactly nationalism is, what exactly a nation is, what a nation is founded on, can be quite controversial. It's one of those things that people will argue about. But the essential concept is that it's political and that it's a group of people that are seeking to govern themselves. All right, so I'm going to hold it there, and then we're going to come back and do a quick snippet on conflict.